Would you like to find mature bucks that are moving during the daylight? I think most of us would. And of course you want deer moving during the daylight too, but mature bucks are the lowest hole in the bucket. There's a lot of times we can go out and shoot a doe or fawn just about any day. They're always doing the same thing every day. Mature bucks, though, to actually be moving during the daylight instead of at night, you know, they might even move the same amount in a 24-hour clock during that entire period. The difference is there's a host of factors that make them move during the daylight more than at night. And of course, we can figure in the rut, and that's the easy stuff. You know, and even then, you can look at periods of time during the rut where you know they're moving during the daylight, or they're moving at night. So even during the rut, you can take a great time where they have a potential of moving more during the daylight and expand on that based on several factors. First thing I like to look at are extremes. Could be extremes of opening day of deer season. Obviously, there's an orange army of gun season. There's an orange army going out in the woods, and that's going to push deer. It's all stress related. You know, weather equals stress, loss of food, stress, lots of noise, lots of wind, stress. Changes in the habitat. Obviously, if there's a logging operation taking place in the woods next door, they're going to move. We had that happen on a property. Dylan, you remember that? Back in Reedstown. The neighbors were logging, timbering. I can remember we sat out on an opening day one time, and this was going back a few years. Dylan and I have been hunting for a while, but we sat on opening day. It was one of the first, 2016, one of the first times we hunted together. Yep. And you remember you brought the big pack in, and
oh yeah, yeah.
And there's logging equipment on the neighbor's property, and we're like, how come we're not seeing any deer? And they're right next to us, and that was a pretty bummer of a year because the logging operation was going on all the way into mid-October. So when they start in July, go through October, the deer just leave. It's something extreme. Stress. Food. Think about this. A mature buck, deer in general, feed 5 times in a 24-hour period. The rhythmic pattern feeders like a baby. If any of you have ever been around a baby, what happens when that baby misses a meal? They scream. They cry. They don't just go to sleep and quietly enjoy their nap in the crib. They're hungry and they scream, they cry, and they want you to know about it. And you should actually go attend to them. The difference is with deer, they sit there, they miss quality feeding opportunities, and they're hungry. They want to put the feed back on. So when you combine food, stress, and weather, it creates the perfect storm for deer to not only be hungry, but be stressed. Weather, when it comes through, I'm looking for extreme changes in weather. Cold fronts. A lot of times a cold front where temperatures dropping 20, 25 degrees featured high winds, featured extreme weather. Might have been thunder, lightning, blizzards, rain, sleet, hail, vicious snow. When that happens, you multiply stress factor, a lot of noise in the woods. At the same time, the temperature's dropping. So they have the stress of loss of energy. So they can't wait to put the feed bag on. And they're, of course, they're missing quality feeding opportunities because they're not going out in the open. People say, oh, deer feed on the front side of a blizzard. Yeah, sometimes. But deer are pretty smart and adept at not going out in open fields and get caught in a blizzard where they're going to die because they're out in the open and they're exposed. We get 2 feet of snow around here. We don't find a bunch of dead deer that were feeding out in the food plots because they didn't want to leave when the snow came in. They knew, because what I think they know of is feel. So they can feel the dampness in the air, the humidity, the wind speed change, and they know something's coming. And they get out of there. They're not there to begin with. So I'm looking for all these things to take place. When you have major weather coming through, it'll put deer on their feet, especially a mature buck, because he's hungry. He's stressed. There's 3 ways a deer loses energy reserve. It's stress. Their heart rate goes from 100 to 200 just about instantly, let alone brush breaking down. They're burning stress. Cold. Cold burns stored energy. And then finally, missed feeding opportunities. They're not going out in the fields. They're not going out in the open hardwoods and just gorging themselves all night where it's safe and social. They don't have that opportunity because that weather's going through. So there's 3 whammies that hits them, where you have loss of energy, cold burning energy, stress, loss of feeding opportunities. So there's 3 major ways due to, again, lack of food, stress, and then that cold temperature, where deer are going to move because they want to replenish that energy, and they're going to go feed. They're going to go find feed as soon as that breaks, not before, because they don't always know exactly what's coming, how long it's going to be. They don't get caught out in the blizzard and the open areas. Folks, it's time for the rut, and that means you need to check out my rut web class. It'll help you navigate the entire rut. But more importantly, QuietKat is one of our important partners, and through that partnership, they've offered to clients, people that contact us, an incredible discount and opportunity to buy a new QuietKat. Look for an email that you can contact and the contact information in the description, but I really want to pass that off to you. We don't do that very often, but I want to make sure you guys don't miss out if you're looking and in the market for a new QuietKat. So what does that mean to you? You know, how are you going to find deer on their feet or mature buck? Well, you're going to focus on bedding areas in the morning. Just because they're hungry doesn't mean a deer goes out into a major food source right in the middle of the day. Sometimes they do. But they're going to be back, they're going to be hitting the browse, and they're going to be moving a lot of times within that bedding area. Now, if it's the rut, they're going to move between bedding areas, back and forth. They might hit really good clear cuts in a public land. They might go hit a stand of acorns. They might go hit a lone apple tree. They might go hit diversity of habitat where it hits lowland meets upland. They might hit a little hidden food plot back in the woods and back in the middle of nowhere. The bottom line is, they're going to be moving a lot more because they're hungry. That means they have to be on their feet. They don't just lay there and gorge themselves. They have to move around. They want to replenish fat reserves and energy reserves. Bedding areas, you hunt in the morning. You go in there in the morning and wait for them to come back. If the weather is subsided, it doesn't mean you need to have calm winds. You want more moderate winds, actually. Seems like dependable winds will put deer on their feet more than no wind at all. They like to use the wind to their advantage. Plus, a little wind helps you get in and out of your stands a little bit better, too. The bottom line is it gives you direction to go in, get into your stands, where the wind's going to blow on your stand and keep it away from deer, and then you can have a good hunt. But that's what puts deer on their feet and helps them move during the daylight back in their bedding areas. And then in the afternoon, they're going to go hit those afternoon food sources. You're putting a stand location on the way to that food. Think about these areas, doesn't matter if it's on public or private land, where at this time can those deer replenish energy reserves fast? They're a little bit different than we are. You know, even look at drinking. They go get a drink of water. They're doing it just for a minute, half a minute, and they're gone. They do it quick. We enjoy our beverage. Think coffee. You might have the same cup of coffee for a half hour just sipping on it in the morning. It's not deer. It's not the way they eat. It's not the way they drink. They consume energy fast. They drink fast, and then they're moving on. They're efficient creatures. What that also means is that yeah, you're focusing on those food sources in the afternoon, you're focusing on bedding areas in the morning, but this time is fleeting. What I mean by that, front comes through, produces a lot of stress, loss of energy reserves. Deer need to replenish that. But once they do, it's back to the norm. And what is the norm? Temperatures were ranging around 70 degrees, doesn't matter where you live. All of a sudden they're ranging 50, 52. Giant change took place. Giant extreme change and stress took place to make that happen. But then all of a sudden, right after that takes place, and I always use the example of you're lost in the wilderness, you're starving, you get rescued, you eat a bunch of food, drink a lot of water, but you don't do that the second, third, and fourth day. You just replenish what you lost. You're not going to have that hunger every day for a week. The point is, it happens fast, and once that temperature drops, that becomes a new norm. When you hear norm, when you hear consistency, that equals boring. It equals a lack of change, equals a lack of extremity, lack of extremes. It equals a lack of extremes, equals a lack of stress. And it's the opposite of what fuels daylight, mature buck movement. So look for those extremes to take place. Extremes are a lot of times are based on food. And when that happens, it'll put deer on their feet. Deer typically don't move around a lot when there's just nothing going on and it's boring. But you get a weather change. We're going in tonight. I don't know if it'll make a big difference, but we have winds switching that have been more northerly northwest for several days now because it kept getting colder. We went literally from 88 down to a high of in the 40s. Major changes. We've had those northerly winds, northwesterly winds, west-northwest, and then tomorrow we're getting southeast. We haven't had those southerly winds for a while now. See that change? Something's happening in the air. Moisture's changing, wind speed's changing, direction of wind is changing. And that's what you're looking for to spur whitetail activity. Maybe it'll happen tonight, maybe it'll happen tomorrow night. But you can bet I'll be out because I expect daylight movement with the stress and change in the whitetail woods. Those extremes, watch for them. And the more extreme the weather change, the better. The more extreme the change. I obviously look at the extreme of logging. They go in to log the 40 acres next to you, and they're in there and out all day. There's no deer living on that 40 acres during the daylight. That's very, very extreme, and it happens with the weather too. Look for those extremes. Look for that change in stress, and you'll find consistent quality hunting all season long. Now, I appreciate you guys watching the YouTube channel, but I don't know if everyone knows everything that we have to offer, whether it's on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, our website, or WHS Wildlife Blends, our seed company. Also Instagram you can check out. I'm very active on Instagram, putting strategies on there, photos of what we do every day. Much more active there than Facebook. But our seed, web classes, books, clients, articles. I have over 600 articles on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, everything whitetail strategy. Of course, we have hats on there, and then make sure to check us out on Instagram again. But lots of stuff to offer. We're always coming out with new things, and this isn't the end of it. We have more things coming soon. Make sure to check us out.